Listeners, NerdWallet wants you to let them do the work for you. Looking for auto insurance? The Nerds will match you with top providers in your area in just a few questions. So getting the right rate for you is as simple as going to nerdwallet.com. After all, letting NerdWallet do the work is more than smart. It's genius. Not all applicants will qualify for the lowest monthly payments. NerdWallet Insurance Services Incorporated. California resident license number OK92033. The Rachel Hollis podcast is proudly sponsored by Amica Insurance. As Amica says, empathy is our best policy. That's why they'll go above and beyond to tailor your insurance coverage to best fit your needs. Whether you're on the road, at home, or traveling along life's journey, their friendly and knowledgeable representatives will work with you to ensure that you have the right coverage in place. Amica will provide you with peace of mind. Go to amica.com to get a quote today. Hi guys, it's Rach. Welcome to another episode of the podcast and something a little different. I had the opportunity over the last couple of months to do an incredible amount of podcast interviews on other people's podcasts. In anticipation of the new book coming out, I got to meet all sorts of new podcast hosts and talk about all sorts of different subjects. And I thought maybe you would dig hearing those conversations on the show. So sometimes my favorite podcast hosts will share interviews they've done with other people, and I always love it because I get to hear someone ask them questions, and my fingers are crossed that you enjoy these for the same reasons. So over the next month, I'm going to share some of the conversations I've had with other hosts, and I'll also detail the information about that podcast episode within the show notes of this one. So if you want to take a deeper dive, or maybe you love this host and you want to listen to everything that they do, you can very easily access them and become a fan of their show as well. But I hope you dig these conversations and find them helpful.
Welcome to the Angels and Awakening podcast, where we connect you with your angels, loved ones, and soul self. I'm your host and author, Julia Jancius. My journey began when I started hearing my late father before I knew he'd passed. Through my readings, membership, and Angel Reiki School, I help you awaken, heal, and master your unique spiritual gifts. If you feel called to work with me, it's your angels guiding you to discover your soul's highest purpose. Details at theangelmedium.com. Thank you, Earth Angels, for the 5-star reviews. You're entered into a drawing to win a free session. Now let's see what messages your angels have for you today. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julia Jancius. And friends, today we're kicking the new year off, January here, with Rachel Hollis, who, if you don't remember and haven't grown up like the last 15 years on Instagram, Rachel, I think you're the original influencer. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
There's no way that I am. There's no way. But I definitely have been doing this a very long time.
Yes. You have a new book that just totally touched my heart when I heard the name of it. It's called What If You Are the Answer? And what I've been trying to show people over the years here on the show is that the angels always say, listen, if we were allowed to physically come into Earth and do everything for you, we would do it. We would have done it already. But the only way that they can work is through us, through our intuition, through calling to our hearts, showing us the way, showing us signs. But then it's really up to us to take action. And I think that this is all your new book. So I'm so excited to dive in with you.
Yeah, I am too. I'm so ready to geek out. This is one of my favorite subjects.
What brought you to this aha moment? What if you are the answer?
Well, honestly, the impetus for this book was kind of this really beautiful bookend for me as a writer to a book I wrote back in 2017 called Girl Wash Your Face, which is how most people know me. And back when that was the first nonfiction I had ever written, first personal development. And I really felt so much passion in my heart to help women, especially. I know I have a few dudes who listen to my stuff, but it is predominantly women. And I just felt so strongly I wanted to write every idea I had and here's what helped me and here's what you should do, and I really went into that thinking that I could have the answers for everybody. Like if I
Mhm.
just did enough research and if I just tried enough things, that I could come to my audience and my readers and I could say this is what you do. And my heart was pure, my intentions were pure, but I think in retrospect, a bit of immaturity on my part, because time and wisdom has taught me that I can't possibly have the answers for anybody else. In fact, I know what I know today, but Julie, that could change. Like tomorrow, something could happen that would completely shake up what I believe. So I went into this process thinking, well, if I'm going to keep writing to her, to my reader, I really have to write as the person that I am today. And the person that I am today doesn't have answers for you, but I do have some really good questions. Questions for me have always been how I can do my own soul searching and my own unpacking and really take a deep dive to figure out what's really going on inside me.
Well, I think that you just touched on something that we really haven't talked about on the podcast, but I think that listeners often bring up and need to hear, because I believe that every soul, no matter who it is here in some way to serve. I think all of us are here to enjoy life in one aspect and also serve in another. And yet so many people feel that within themselves of like, how could I start a podcast, or how could I write a book, or how could I put myself out there when I don't have my life totally together? Because PS, no one does.
Nobody
And
does.
there's this fear that if I start talking, what if I change my mind?
Yeah, it is a really funny world to be inside of when you create in the age of the internet, right? I think probably 50 years ago, this wasn't such a issue, but now there is such a desire. I think there's certain people who are like looking for you to mess up. They're looking for you to make a mistake. They're looking for you to say something and they can go, wait a minute. I make a joke about this, like, wait a minute, you said you hate cilantro and you're eating cilantro on that salad, but 10 years ago you made a tweet that you hated cilantro and now you're eating cilantro, and like they're just looking for things to sort of catch you out, as if the evolution or as if changing your mind or changing your thought pattern is somehow disingenuous. And I actually think it's the most authentic way that we can live is in this state of wanting to grow and wanting to change. I actually said this, I want to say in Girl Wash Your Face, but many times over the years in my writing. I hope if you read the first book I wrote and you read what I just wrote now, which is my 10th book, I hope that you're like, oh my gosh, what? This is crazy. Like she became a better writer. Her ideas are totally different. She's evolved in so many ways. I hope you can see the growth, because I'm working so hard on that in my life that I hope it's evident in the work. And I would just encourage your listeners to lean into that. Gary Vaynerchuk Gary V, as everyone calls him, has a great sort of motto in this, which is document, don't create. So, meaning document your progress, document your growth, document what you're working on. Just talk about where you are and what you're learning. And that can be what you are putting out into the world, rather than try and have it all perfect and then like submit this perfect thing, because the world's going to change and you're going to change. And of course, the work will change as well.
Yeah, I love that document piece. It's how I think about my work. I can only think about it in terms of like writing to my daughter or putting messages out to
Mhm.
my daughter. Because when I think about how many people are going to listen to the show, it gives me total anxiety inside. But when I go, no, I'm just leaving messages that my daughter can pick up on later on, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I love that you said that too. I was actually just thinking about that this morning and I sort of had a tug and I was like, oh, we're going to end up talking about this. So I love that this was just like the serve to talk about it. I think that I'm assuming who your audience is, right? I'm assuming it's people like us who are looking for spiritual guidance. They want to evolve, they want to grow. And I think that most people listening will understand the idea of an emotional boundary and
Yeah.
how important it is, not just an emotional boundary, but also energetic boundaries that we create to keep ourselves in a solid foundation, to keep ourselves grounded, to be able to do what we're doing. But I actually don't think there are enough people having conversations about what those boundaries look like when it comes to the internet or when it
Mhm.
comes to social media. We're sort of taught to aim at what will make the algorithm most happy or what the readers most want to read or the viewers most want to watch or the listeners most want to hear. But I really think, especially for people in your community who are looking to be creators and to try and help others with putting things out in the world, you really need to think about the energetic boundaries that you have
Mhm.
to hold for your work. And my example of this is I have comments shut off on all of my social platforms, and I have for a very long time. And I wish that I could tell you that I was like, I have the thickest skin and nothing gets to me and I don't care what people say. And I tried that for a really long time and it just gave me massive anxiety.
Mm.
And I finally got to the place where I realized that it is about what I hope to put out and what I hope is helpful, but I am not responsible for whether or not it reaches someone, right? Like, I think that God or the universe, whatever you believe in, it gives you some potential, and it's your job to step into that potential and let the universe, in all its majesty, do with that what it will. But it's
Yeah.
not your job to try and control what happens next. Did you get 10 million followers because of your one, Instagram reel? But I finally had to get to a place where I thought, if I'm going to do this work, I have to do it in a way that doesn't destroy me because
Yeah.
it is, I just can't. I know it's so dumb. And I also know that it could be like a fake thing. But when I post a video where I'm like, oh, I hope this helps you with your anxiety, and someone's like, your hair is disgusting, I hate you. I know I should think that that's ridiculous, but it does sort of shut me down and it inhibits my progress and it keeps me from moving forward. So I've just had to learn how to work in this space with what works for me. Because I think a lot of us who lean into a spiritual mindset and look for that evolution, we tend to be empathic and we tend to sort of pull in more energy than other people would. So sorry that I just rambled, but I
No.
really felt called to say that today. Like, if someone listening is really wanting to put stuff out into the world, but you can't handle some of the ways that social media functions, only go on the platforms that make sense to you, or put up your own guardrails, put up your own boundaries to allow yourself to do the work in the way that you need to do it.
I love finding ways to commemorate really important experiences in my life. Usually, if you look at my wrist, you will see it stacked with bracelets that do just that. And if you want to celebrate your unique story, check out Pandora Jewelry. They're crafted with meaning and exquisite artistry, from sparkling lab-grown diamonds to vibrant enamels, personalized engravings, and their iconic charms. Pandora offers endless ways to express what's in your heart. Every day is a chance to be love. Let Pandora Jewelry remind you that love starts with you. Shop in-store or online at pandora.net. Coming into the new year, it was time for a big reset for our family. We had so much fun over the holidays and we indulged in sugar and all the stuff we normally wouldn't have, which is why I love coming back into a routine with Thrive Market. Thrive Market lets you easily find trusted, family-friendly brands and shop based on your needs. So things like low sugar or gluten-free, organic or high protein, you can filter them without the hassle of grocery store trips. Plus, with the Healthy Swap scanner in the app, you can scan a product you already buy and get instant recommendations for cleaner, healthier alternatives. Ready for a junk-free start to 2025? Head to thrivemarket.com/rach and you'll get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/rach thrivemarket.com/rach.
And you can't know that right at the beginning. I think that there are so many people that I work with. I have the privilege of getting to work with a lot of CEOs and presidents and do intuitive readings for them, and then working with people who are just starting out building their own business. And there are so many people who just want like shoots and ladders game, right? To like shoot ahead and find the secret hack. And it's really failing your way forward because the stream of consciousness that we have as a soul doesn't get to take shortcuts to the top. You have to learn that you don't like cilantro or that you do like cilantro or that, working your routine and your schedules. Hey, if I block all my podcasts right next to each other and just do them back to back, that I have more energy Monday through Wednesday to get other stuff done. But there is no secret to getting ahead except for just stepping into it.
Yeah. And there's so much media that will tell you that's not true. There's so many things that will tell you if you just do this, if you just do that, everyone is looking for these hacks and these quick fixes and these things. And it's like, we've all seen those, we think that success, the graph of success just goes like this, and it actually goes like this and around and up. And it's all sorts of different directions, and your willingness to stay in it and to learn the lessons as they come and to look for why that might have shown up the way that it did so that you can do better for what comes next. I was at a party on Friday night, and I ended up talking to someone who had gone through a really hard year this year. And he's just an incredibly wise spiritual teacher. And so I was like, oh, how are you? And yeah, I'm great. And I was like, no, how are you for real? And he was like, oh yeah, man, I really had some lessons to learn.
Yeah.
And I never want to feel like I am so advanced in what I am doing that I'm not open to when the universe is trying to teach me something. And sometimes those lessons are trial by fire. But your willingness to stay in it is how you get to the next level in your growth.
So this is a question that I had for the end, but it just fits perfectly in here. I was thinking, Rachel, I followed you for so long. Has your definition of success changed over the years from what you thought it was at the beginning?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So much of what I used to believe was success was really financial security. And I can totally understand if I look back at like baby Rach and the environment I grew up in, which was very financially insecure and a lot of fear around money and a lot of food insecurity, just like kind of all the things as a little kid where I didn't feel safe. And in my mind, I attached that to money. So I grew up thinking, like a lot of people I knew who grew up in this way, that if I could just make enough money, then I would be safe. And once I had kids, it's like, okay, and if I make enough money, then I can keep my kids safe. And in retrospect, it was such a scarcity mentality to live inside of. But oh my gosh, how it has shifted. And it has shifted by kind of going from the bottom, building up to what I thought was the best it could ever be, realizing that at that level of, and I'm using air quotes if people can't see me, like at that level of success, it was the most emotionally and energetically and spiritually depleted I've ever been in my life. Because the grind and the hustle to like get to that level really gave me a life I didn't want to have. And I did not get this when I was younger in my career. I would look at people and I admired them so much and I would want to be just like them. But it's really important. If I could give people just like if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self something, it would be to not just look at the success that they've achieved, but look at the lifestyle they had to live in order to get that success. Because I cannot tell you how many people I would be so blown away by, and then I become friends and I get to know them, and their relationships were abysmal and they didn't talk to their kids. And yeah, they had all the money in the world, and strangers would come up to them on the street and be like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. But in their real life was something nobody would want. So I think success for me has shifted from completely financial to, can I live life the way that I want to live life? I was kind of laughing to myself this morning. I had like a 2-hour kind of morning routine before coming here to hang out with you. And I was laughing because it's like I'm dry brushing and I went on a run and I like did yoga and I just did all of these things that took so much time. And I kind of, some like old pattern in me was like, this is too much time to spend on self-care. And then I was like, this is all there is. Like this is why I work so hard, so that I get to make my own schedule, so that once my kids are at school, I can spend time dry brushing and doing yoga in my bedroom floor if I want to. So yeah, success more is about the lifestyle today than it is about the amount of money or the accolades.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and there's so many people that really have those different money mindsets or that financial scarcity mindset. And one of the things that the angels have been bringing in a lot in 2024, but I want to go into more in 2025, is that money has gotten this bad rap, though, too, within our entire society. And there is a spiritual way to look at money, not just as this abundance or the car that you drive or the purse that you have, but how has your relationship between money itself and spirituality changed?
Well, I think, I used to see it as this very tangible thing, right? Like, oh, I didn't have money growing up, so I really wanted it. I moved to LA when I was 17 years old and, started working multiple jobs, trying to support myself, doing that whole thing. And so my early 20s were about, I think a lot of people go through this, but like your phone gets shut off, your power gets shut off, you're not paying your bills on time. Like all of these things are happening because not only did I not have it, but I also didn't understand how to use it. Money is a tool, and there is a way that you can utilize it in your world. And I mean, literally the most basic things, like how do you pay your bills? How do you do your taxes? Once you get a paycheck, how do you make sure that you're covering the things that you owe before you go, to Target and buy throw pillows you don't need, which was a big problem in my early 20s. But I didn't know, and nobody taught me that. And so because I didn't know, I was afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get a paycheck and I would immediately spend as much as I could because it's like, oh, it's going to be taken away, which doesn't make sense. But that was how I was sort of thinking about it. And I would challenge anybody in your community, if you feel like you might have a scarcity around money or around finances, I think the most powerful place to start is, what are the things that you heard repeated in your childhood home around money? Money doesn't grow on trees. That's for rich people. That's not for people like us. How could we ever afford it? I'm using some of the things from my childhood. But the things that we heard around certain topics become our blueprint, and it becomes the way that we function in the world. So the first step, I think, is identifying where your mindset comes from and then actively working to change the way that you talk about it. So what it looks like for me today is, I genuinely believe that the universe, God, I like to use every possible term for whatever you believe in, source, energy, whatever you believe in, angels, all of it, is like, this is an abundant thing. And it is coming through me because I'm going to push it back out into the world. So I really believe that I continue to attract money into my life. This is just it sounds so obnoxious, I don't know how else to say it, but I attract abundance into my life because I am constantly pushing that abundance back out into the world. And that looks like everything. That looks like being the most generous tipper. That looks like taking care of friends and family. That looks like, I only have a few employees, but they are paid very well. Like, it looks like this relationship that I have with source that is giving me this abundance, we are in an agreement that I will not hold on to this. I will push it back out, and I will do everything that I can to take care of other people because I trust that more is on the way. Like, I keep doing this sort of cycle motion. I realize that not everyone can see my hands right now, but that shift for me of thinking, oh, every once in a while you're going to get some money, and you got to make sure you don't spend it, because if you spend it, you're never going to get more. Like that shift for me, it just gave me such peace. And it didn't mean like there's so many YouTube videos and different things that are like, do these 7 things and you'll have $1 million by Tuesday. And I have not ever, that's not ever something I've experienced. And I don't think it works like that. I think that I have always been taken care of. Even when I was 20 years old and my phone was getting shut off and I didn't know how to pay my bills, I was taking care of them too. And I can look at 1,000 examples in my life where I was taken care of, and I will always be taken care of. I can't guarantee the amount of money that will always be flowing into my bank account, but I trust that the universe has me and I don't need to worry about it.
Well, and kind of taking you back to the book too, I've gotten to this point where I think that there is this beautiful dance between us as souls and God, universe, source, that God keeps showing us that we are the answer. Like, bet on yourself, trust yourself. Like, you've got this.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like the amount of, again, I'm going to make a sweeping generalization, but the amount of women that have come up to me over the last 10 years and asked some version of, how do I convince my partner to believe in my dream? Like I literally just made a video about this, so I'm dying that this is where our conversation is headed. But how do I convince mama and daddy that I really want to be a country singer and I'm going to move to Nashville and pursue that? How do I convince my husband that I should start a podcast? How do I convince? They're constantly asking, how do I convince someone else to believe in me? And what they're looking for is validation. They're looking for their right to pursue this calling on their heart. And the reality is, it is not anybody else. It is only you. If you want other people to believe in you, believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, you will take action that is aligned with that belief, and you will get so much further and you will start to make progress and traction. And then the people around you are going to be like, oh my gosh, look at her go. Like, I never thought this could be a thing. Stop trying to get other people to buy into what you're doing. I swear, if you focus on, how do I heal myself? How do I learn myself? How do I really get in touch with my inner wisdom? Your life will start to shift in ways that will never happen just because your big sister finally believes that you should start a small business.
So that brings me back to your relationship with your intuition and your own inner wisdom. How did you really start listening to it and believing it? Because from what you were just saying, when I work with my clients, that's the trip up for them too, is they worry, well, what if I'm not really hearing this correctly from God, universe, source? Like, what if I'm not supposed to be a country singer? And when I say like callings on your heart, I think that people get that mixed up with the movie The Secret from like 2008, which made it too financial, too materialistic. And they're wanting these things. It's not that. When I say callings of your heart, there are some things that I was hearing in my 20s that I didn't listen to for 5 or 7 years. And as soon as I asked that question again or prayed that prayer again, it took me back to the exact same inner wisdom answer. And that's where I think that some women are hearing it for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. The answer doesn't change. It's go do this. And then the moment that you take like the step on that thing, I think what's actually happening energetically and vibrationally is that when you go do the teeny tiny small little thing, there's something about the vibration of who you're talking to, or like people who just needed to turn on this podcast today. There's a vibration that's here between both of our voices that opens you up to the next answer. And then you do that and the next and the next and the next.
Yeah. Oh, so many thoughts on this. Well, one of the ways, honestly, that I have better learned to know and trust my intuition is with hindsight. Is really because we have to, I guess, take a step back. I was raised in a very religious environment. I was raised in a religious environment that everything you and I are talking about right now would have been deemed sinful. It would have been like the devil is inside of them. Like it was really hardcore. anybody who did not go to our church was other. And because they were other, they were sinners. And it was like crazy. And maybe some of your listeners.
I totally get it. Yeah, we were raised Catholic and then went to a Christian megachurch when my parents divorced.
Right. Yes. So it's so funny to me that is this kind of foundation that so many people I know have who are now very spiritual, because there were things in that upbringing that really taught us about something bigger and taught us about prayer and taught us about angels and taught us these things. But it was like this teeny tiny sliver of what all there is to understand. So I did not have language for inner wisdom or like any of that, like that inner knowing. I didn't have language for that at all. I would have said when I was younger, like, well, my gut, which is so funny now that I understand chakras, but I just didn't have a language for that. So I didn't know what was happening. And it wasn't until I started to look backwards. It wasn't until I added hindsight that I was like, oh, dang. So one of the questions that I ask in the book is, when did you know something was wrong? It's one of the most powerful questions I have ever heard in my life. When did you know something was wrong? Not when did you get confirmation it was wrong, but when did you know? So, friends of mine who've gone through really horrible breakups, or, they had a business partner who turned out to be shady. They'll complain about it. I'm like, okay, great. But when did you know? And they're like, oh, I knew on the first date. On the first date, something went funny inside of me and I felt really weird, but I ignored it. Or, oh, you know what? I knew the first time I saw them talk to a server and they were rude to the server, and that made me feel weird, but I ignored it. If you can go back in hindsight and look at those moments and ask, what did my body do in that moment? I didn't really know what it meant, but I knew that my body was signaling something to me. You can start to create a pattern of like, oh, shoot, I felt that in this moment. I felt that in this moment. And then you realize this intuition has been screaming at you for years. And if you can just learn to trust it in those moments, you don't even have to know ever the answer. If your intuition says go right instead of left, but your home's to the left, you don't know why it's telling you to go right. You may never know why you got the call to turn right, but just learning to trust that initial like feeling inside of you proves so freaking helpful. But if you didn't have the language for this growing up, you learn to like ignore everything that was trying to tell you to listen.
Oh, I love that so much. And I love when you said it, because I've never heard it said like that before. Just the tip of the iceberg. Like religion was just kind of touching on the tip of the iceberg. And then you look beneath the iceberg and there's so much more energetically there. I'm wondering, like in your own day to day, how do you make space to hear your intuition? Are you just kind of more present with your energy, where you're tuned in and you kind of hear it? Because I'll have that a couple of times a week where I stop in my tracks and I'm like, okay, I just heard that loud and clear from my intuition. But then I do make space every morning for a couple of minutes of oneness and just to set my intention for the day.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's different for every person. I think that one of the big blessings that I have in my ability to connect with that is that I work by myself. So I have this incredible team, but we work virtually. And every once in a while, we're together in one space if we're recording a podcast or, we have a team meeting. But for the most part, I mean, I'm in my studio right now and I'm here by myself. So I talk to myself a lot out loud. I talk to my angels. I talk to my ancestors, like all day long. I'm kind of like, I literally was doing this yesterday. I was trying to figure something out. And I just sort of like am in constant prayer, I guess is what you would call it. Cause I'm like, oh, guys, please help me. Like, I cannot find this answer. I was like trying to figure out how to do something on my computer. It wasn't world changing. It wasn't like, should I trust this person? It was like, I can't figure out how to get my printer to work. But I will ask for guidance for everything. So I'm just in this continuous conversation. It's not like I'm setting aside certain time. I am just going to be talking, like I am asking for a parking spot every time I leave my house. Hey, can you guys go ahead and like find me the parking spot. So when I pull up, it's there. I just ask because I'm like, what? I mean, why not? Like what? I want to like constantly be in communication. So then when it is those really big signals, I trust
Yes.
it. And for me, I have learned, and I wonder if this might be like an aha for some of your audience. I have learned that one of the biggest signals my body gives me is anxiety.
Mm.
And I struggled with anxiety for years, and I am convinced that it was my body screaming at me to listen to what was going on. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I have anxiety. And so I kept treating the symptom of these anxious feelings instead of asking, why do I have these feelings? What is this feeling trying to tell me? So now if I feel like anxiety sweep through my body, I'm like, whoa, hold on. What's going on? Like what's happening that I need to listen to? And it's like, as soon as I will slow down and trust that I'm trying to get, or that something's trying to give me a message, the anxiety goes away. So
Go,
that's a
go
really big one for me.
Yeah, go deeper on that because we say anxiety. And I was like, I don't have anxiety. But then when you look at the symptoms of what anxiety is, you're like,
Right.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it feels like my heart starts to race. I get sort of a sick feeling in my stomach. I have this overwhelming, it's almost like fight or flight has been signaled in my body of like, the only way I can describe it is like something bad's about to happen. And I would always think, oh no, this is my body having an anxiety attack. So I need to do stuff to treat the anxiety. But in retrospect, I'm like, oh no, something bad was about to happen. And I was ignoring that the person I just met was someone that I shouldn't be trustful of. Or I have had this happen a lot with like these brilliant seeming opportunities in business. Like, oh, this is this amazing thing that this person wants to do with you. And it's here's this money. And just like everything in me is like, no. And that's funny because it's hard to explain to people who you work with, let's say, why you want to say no to something that seems so fabulous. But I have just learned when that feeling sweeps through me, whatever the signal is, I have to.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Okay, business leaders, are you here to play or are you playing to win? If you're in it to win, meet your next MVP, NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is your full business management system in one convenient suite. With NetSuite, you're running your accounting, your finance, your HR, your e-commerce, and more, all from your online dashboard. Upgrade your playbook and make the switch to NetSuite, the #1 cloud ERP.
Get the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/podcast25. netsuite.com/podcast25.
Listen to it.
I was just watching that Martha Stewart documentary, and they were
Love.
talking about, I think it was when she got out of jail, they tried to do which you
A
just watched.
teacup.
Oh,
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Different part.
they tried to do like a TV show with her, but the producer that they had work on the TV
Yes.
show just
Yes.
ran with it in his own direction. And they weren't listening to her or her intuition on it at all. And it was just a disaster.
Didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah. And you could even see from the outside perspective of like, well, she just went through this really awful thing that destroyed her business. Everyone was telling her this was the answer. You are very easily swayed against what is going on inside of you when you have so many outside voices that you're giving authority to versus yourself. I don't know that we can confidently hold space for an authority figure outside ourselves and believe in our own authority. Like one of those has to lead.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know about you, but I was raised in a lot of authority figures, whether it was the version of God I grew up believing in, or my daddy, or all of these different things that I was taught were more important and were smarter and were better than my own thought process. And so I should always depend on them for the right answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah.
And doctors too. My daughter is perfectly healthy now, but she was born with a syndrome. And we just kept taking her around. She was really medically fragile child for the first 3 years. So we would take her around and I would just trust that the doctors knew what they were talking about and they didn't. And I
Yeah.
kept hearing go above, like go to the head of the department. And we did. And that's what ended up kind of saving her
Oh,
life.
amazing. That's
Mhm.
honestly, that's such an important one too. I have a friend who has a daughter who has cancer right now. It's awful. And she was telling me about taking her into doctors and different things, and that people would just walk into the room where her daughter's a teenager, but they would just walk in the room, the doctors, and start telling them all, "Here's what we found, and here's what it means, and here." And she was like, "Absolutely not," to the point that they put a sign on the hospital door that said, "Do not say anything in front of her," because what they wanted most for her was to feel empowered, to feel strong. They wanted to be able to give her the information themselves in a way that was empowering, because when you're dealing with so many specialists and they're in a hurry, and they were saying stuff to her that was so debilitating, and she's a kid and it was
Yeah.
scary. So yeah, they had to step in, which was like hard because you think doctors know best,
Yeah.
but you know your kid best, you know yourself best, you know your family best, and you've got to listen to that.
Yeah, yeah, 1,000,000,000%. So the podcast listeners who listen to the show for the last 5, 6 years know this story. But my dad, I caught him cheating when I was like in third, fourth grade, caught him cheating
Mm.
again in fifth grade.
Oh
And
no.
we were so close, but tried to come back together. But every time we would, you'd find out that he's cheating again and he just wanted you to lie. So we had this complex relationship because I loved him so much and I loved the spiritual part of him and the philosophical part of him. And we actually have this closer relationship, I think, now that he's on the other side, because he's the one that brought these gifts through. I was just working in corporate America, minding my own business. And every time I would brush my daughter's hair, I'd hear, "She needs a hairbrush like I used. She needs a hairbrush like I used." Well, it started the day he passed, and nobody had my phone number to call me because my name had changed. And an entire month later, after hearing this, every time I brush Elle's hair, I get a call at work and I hear, "Juge, dad's passed." And I saw this vision out of my third eye of my dad combing my hair as a little girl in our bathroom. He used to work nights at the airport as a flight guy who tells like the flights when they can take off. And he used to get us ready in the morning. So I started this work stepping away from the religious side because I knew he was trying to reach out. I think that was what was most shocking when my dad passed, is that I just always thought that when you saw mediums on TV communicating with your loved ones on the other side, that they would hear them in that person's voice.
Mm.
And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not like that. It just
Yeah.
sounds like your own intuition. But I tell my students sometimes, like, if I could line up different family members one at a time behind my back and I've got my eyes closed, I could tell you what the presence of my dad felt like when we were just the closest. And I could tell you what the presence of like my grandma Donna felt like when she was around. And so when I tune into my intuition and I'm kind of wondering, is it an angel? Is it a loved one? That presence is there
Yeah.
too.
I saw this video several months ago that I just thought was so simple and it was so wise. It kind of feels like this what we're talking about is they were like, if you want to learn to trust yourself and to grow your ability to listen to your intuitive thoughts, start with the most simple things,
Mhm.
meaning when you are thirsty, drink some water. When you have to go to the bathroom, don't hold it. Like go to the bathroom and go pee. When you're hungry, eat. When you're like the most basic things to take care of yourself we often, oh, I'm busy, I'll do it later. Oh, I haven't eaten lunch. Like, I don't have time. Like, we will push off all of these instincts our body is signaling to us. And we will learn to ignore the most basic animal instincts inside of us, which will then tune us out to the bigger, spiritual intuition that might be trying to come through. So if you can just start with the most basic thing of, hey, I'm really thirsty, I'm going to have some water, as opposed to ignoring it, that's a really good place to start. And when we are walking through hard seasons and when we walk through grief or trauma or loss, like we're trying to get through something hard, I think that often the people in our life or the world around us wants us to move faster. They don't understand why we're still upset, or they don't understand why it's still hard. Or, I tell the story in the book of losing a baby at 4 months, and I could not get over it, Julie. Like I couldn't. I mourned the loss of that baby for a year. Like, and I know that my friends and my boyfriend and like everyone, nobody was outright saying it, but it was just like, oh my God, like, how is she still this upset? But simultaneously, I was like, this is my grief. I'm not inflicting it on you. No, I'm not okay. And it's okay that I'm not okay. I promise, I have faith that I will be okay again. But you have to allow me the time and the space to process this at the pace that I need to. And, especially with miscarriage, I know so many women who've gone through it, and everyone just expects them to bounce back. And nobody else experienced the baby inside of it, so they can't really process it. And I don't know if someone needed to hear that today, but you get to go at your own pace. And if you don't go at your own pace, I promise you that is going to come up and out later when you least want it to.
Exactly. I was just talking about that with my students at the Angel Reiki School this weekend, where I teach people how to develop their spiritual gifts. And I was telling them there's some energies that are harder to work with your clients than others. And I said miscarriage is one of those that's just up with losing an adult child or losing, a partner. It really is a very, very deep, complex energy to work with. And I think that you're such an angel messenger yourself, Rachel, of just you listen to your own intuition. You always have, and you just allow your consciousness to unfold. And you're such a messenger in just sharing that with the world. What message do you feel just is calling to you in part to just kind of leave our audience with today?
Okay, this is a funny one, but it popped into my head earlier, and I always know that that's like a just say it kind of thing. So, it's a very funny segue into this answer. A few years ago, I went on an ayahuasca retreat. I feel like this audience can handle that.
Totally. Love it.
So I went on an ayahuasca retreat, and there was something that the person who was administering the plant medicine said that I have never forgot, and I think about it a lot, which was, they said, you're going to take this medicine, and like, who knows what they walk you through the whole thing. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what you can expect. But they said the process of taking ayahuasca, that can be like a very long time, 5 or 6 hours. And they said, Aya likes it when you rise up to meet her, which was just such a spiritual, like beautiful thing to say. They were like, at some point, the medicine you've taken is going to make you want to like lay down. You're going to get really lethargic. You're going to potentially start to fall asleep because you're so sort of out of it and you've been in this state. And they said, Aya likes it when you sit back up. Aya likes it when you physically sit back up and say, I am still here for your lessons. I am still here to understand and to know and to learn. And in my own experience, it was a wild one. But about halfway through, I found myself really shutting down. And those words came back into my mind. Aya likes it when you rise up to meet her. And you feel like your body weighs about 2,000 pounds. But I remember pushing myself up off the mat and physically sitting back up and thinking, I am still here for your lessons. And I ended up having the most beautiful, I think I cried for like 2 hours. Like all my childhood stuff. It was a beautiful release. And I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't sat back up. And the other day I was talking to my fiance and I was like, I feel like that message, I, Alexa, when you rise up to meet her, if you imagine that all energy, all source energy is the same, the plant medicine is the same as God, is the same as the angels, is the same as all of it. I think that the universe likes it when you rise up to meet her, when you show up for your life, when you say, man, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I weigh, 2,000 pounds. This feels hard. This feels impossible, but I'm going to rise up to meet you. I still have lessons to learn. There's something really powerful that happens when you do that. And it popped into my head as we were talking. So I would love to leave that with you and the listeners today, is like, rise up to meet her.
Oh, I love it. Full body chills. That's so perfect. Your new book is just wonderful. What if you are the answer? Tell everybody where they can find that and where they can find you.
Yeah, you can get the book just about anywhere. And if you like listening to the sound of people talking, you can get it on audiobook. I narrate all of my books, and hang out with me on social media. Just search my name, which is Rachel Hollis.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for being here and sharing this time with us.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a wrap.
Okay, business leaders, are you here to play or are you playing to win? If you're in it to win, meet your next MVP. NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is your full business management system in one convenient suite. With NetSuite, you're running your accounting, your finance, your HR, your e-commerce, and more, all from your online dashboard. Upgrade your playbook and make the switch to NetSuite, the #1 cloud ERP.
Get the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/podcast25. netsuite.com/podcast25.
Where'd you get those shoes? Easy. They're from DSW. Because DSW has the exact right shoes for whatever you're into right now. Like the sneakers that make office hours feel like happy hour. The boots that turn grocery aisles into runways. And all the styles that show off the many sides of you, from daydreamer to multitasker and everything in between. Because you do it all in really great shoes. Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store or DSW.com.